From Disney to X-rated cinema, these actors broke every rule. Discover how they found freedom and success by embracing their dark side. We're diving deep into the underground world of Hollywood to find out how they did it. Mainstream fame often comes with a trap: the loss of creative control. We're revealing the shocking dual lives of Hollywood's most rebellious icons. Prepare for an unfiltered look at the legends who defied the system. Tracy Lords. Our journey begins in the neon-drenched haze of the 1980s, with a name whispered like a delicious secret: Tracy Lords. She wasn't just a star, she was the scandal. Her name passed from tape to tape like forbidden knowledge, her image burned into the analog glow of VHS culture. Tracy Lords didn't just enter the screen, she disrupted it. Born Nora Kuzma in Ohio, Tracy's early life was marked by a rebellious spirit. She arrived in Los Angeles as a teenager, quickly finding a place in the burgeoning adult film industry. But her meteoric rise came with a shocking secret that, when revealed, sent shockwaves not just through Hollywood, but through the legal system itself. Federal agents raided video stores, her past work was pulled from shelves, and conversations about her were suddenly whispered in legal terms, not pop culture ones. It was a media firestorm, a legal nightmare, and for many, it looked like the absolute end of her story. But for Tracy, it wasn't the end. It was the audacious start of a second act. She didn't disappear, she pivoted. With remarkable resilience, she began to rebuild, not by erasing her past, but by subtly subverting it. By the late 80s and early 90s, she was showing up in cult horror, sci-fi, and independent midnight movies. Films like John Waters' Cry Baby, Roger Corman's Not of This Earth, or even the campy Shock 'em Dead. These weren't roles that ignored her public image, they leaned into it, allowing her to playfully flip the script. Her acting, often campy, tongue-in-cheek, and undeniably stylish, slowly began to shift the narrative. She was no longer just a controversy. She was a survivor, a knowing presence, a symbol of reinvention. Tracy wasn't just acting, she was evolving. She began to explore other artistic avenues, finding her voice behind the camera. In the 2000s, she emerged as a writer and director, appearing at indie festivals, fully in control of her creative legacy. She directed music videos, worked on various projects, proving that her vision extended far beyond just being in front of the lens. Tracy Lords didn't try to erase her past, she reframed it. And in doing so, she stepped out of the shadows and into something far more lasting. A kind of fame you build yourself, frame by deliberate frame. Her story is a testament to resilience, showing how one can reclaim agency and authorship even from the jaws of public condemnation. Marilyn Chambers. Before the scandal, there was just the smile. Marilyn Chambers was the face of innocence, quite literally. Her image, glowing and wholesome, was featured on boxes of Ivory Snow detergent, cradling a newborn baby. She was the picture of purity, the corporate ideal of maternal softness, a vision of the American dream in every laundry room across the nation. And then, seemingly overnight, she became something else entirely. In 1972, her breakout film in the adult circuit was not just shocking because of its content, but because of who was in it. The same young woman from the laundry aisle was now front and center in Behind the Green Door, one of the most notorious X-rated films of the 1970s. The contrast was too much for middle America to process. Procter & Gamble quickly pulled her image from their boxes, but the damage, or perhaps the legend, was already done. This audacious move catapulted her into infamy. But Marilyn Chambers didn't vanish into the scandal. Instead, she moved laterally, navigating a strange liminal space where exploitation met art, and taboo became narrative fuel. She entered the realm of cult cinema, a place where boundaries were pushed and traditional Hollywood rules didn't apply. It was there, in the flickering, often grimy light of midnight theaters, that she began to rewrite her legacy. Marilyn never truly escaped her past, nor did she seem to want to. She embraced it, spoke about it openly, and owned it. Through that brutal honesty, she found a second audience. Cinephiles, horror lovers, even feminist critics, all began to re-examine her work, not through the lens of shame, but of cultural subversion and brave performance. She lived many lives within one name: model, adult film star, horror lead, cult icon. A symbol of both America's obsession with purity and its inevitable rejection of it. Marilyn Chambers didn't fall from grace. She jumped headfirst into the underground and came out the other side, not clean, but profoundly transformed. A true pioneer of artistic defiance. Sasha Grey. Our next rebel arrived not with a whimper, but with a challenge. Sasha Grey never asked for forgiveness. She didn't walk into the adult film industry with shame or even hesitation. She arrived with intention, a clear-eyed mission, to destroy the wall between high art and low desire, between performance and provocation. She knew exactly what she was doing, and that unsettling clarity, ironically, unsettled everyone. Born Marina Ann Hansis, Sasha Grey quickly became one of the most intellectually provocative figures in the adult industry. While others in the X-rated world distanced themselves from the labels, seeking sanitized narratives of victimhood or reinvention, Sasha leaned into them. She famously read philosophy on set, quoted Bataille and de Sade in interviews, and engaged with critics on her own terms. She refused to be simplified, demanding to be seen as a thinking woman who made a radical choice in a culture that often punishes that kind of intellectual autonomy. She wasn't just a performer. She was an artist using her body and her choices as a medium. Her crossover wasn't quiet. It was cinematic and strategically brilliant. In 2009, she starred in The Girlfriend Experience, directed by the acclaimed Steven Soderbergh, a filmmaker known for building bridges between indie cinema and Hollywood convention. Sasha played Chelsea, a high-end escort. But this wasn't fantasy or melodrama. It was clinical, minimalist, disarmingly real. The camera didn't ogle her. It observed her as she drifted through sterile apartments and transactional conversations about money, connection, and the illusion of control. She was haunting, detached, authentic. And suddenly, people who had never spoken her name were writing serious essays about her performance, acknowledging her as a formidable actress. But Sasha Grey didn't stop there. She expanded her artistic horizons, becoming a successful DJ, a novelist, and an actress in international art films and experimental projects. She was invited to panel discussions, lectures, and book fairs, not despite her past at all, but precisely because of the unique intellectual way she had framed it. To some, she was a walking contradiction: X-rated background, literary taste, erotic history, intellectual edge. But to Sasha, there was no contradiction, just the refusal to be simplified. She didn't just cross from adult cinema to mainstream, she blurred the border until it essentially disappeared. What emerged was something rare in any era of Hollywood: a woman who told her story, defined her art, and commanded her legacy before anyone else could rewrite it for her. Sasha Grey never looked back. She only looked through the lens, through the stigma, through the expectations of what a woman, a performer, an icon, is supposed to be. Lynn. She quickly became known for more than just her looks. Ginger Lynn wasn't just a face, she was a personality. Loud, brash, and completely unapologetic, she rode the wave of the X-rated industry's peak with the irrepressible energy of someone who wasn't just playing a role, but truly claiming space. While others might have attempted to soften their image, she leaned into it, teasing, laughing, pushing limits, not just in scenes, but in interviews, in public appearances, in every frame she inhabited. She embodied the wild, untamed spirit of the decade. And then, like many stars of that era, she disappeared. The industry changed, public tastes shifted, and the VHS boom eventually waned. But unlike most, Ginger Lynn came back. In the 1990s, she resurfaced, this time in a different kind of cinema. Low-budget thrillers, horror flicks, and the burgeoning exploitation revival scene. Directors like Rob Zombie, an admirer of her previous work, cast her not as a novelty, but as a genuine presence. She brought an undeniable edge, a legacy, and a tangible sense of danger to every role. She became a beloved cult figure, not because she tried to erase her past, but because she carried it with her like a badge of authenticity. In an industry obsessed with reinvention and forgetting, she remained surprisingly constant, raw, funny, profoundly human. There was a moment, fleeting but real, when the lines blurred. She starred alongside Tracy Lords in indie films, brushed up against the edge of the mainstream again, and appeared at conventions as both a nostalgia act and a deeply subversive icon. To her fans, she was never just an adult star. She was the vivid face of a lost format, a symbol of a wilder, weirder Hollywood that lived between tapes at midnight, with tracking lines and absolutely no apologies. Ginger Lynn didn't break into the mainstream. She dragged a significant, smirking piece of the underground with her and left it there, daring anyone to pretend they hadn't watched. Maitland Ward. For a generation, Maitland Ward was the sweet redhead next door. Millions grew up watching her on Boy Meets World, where she played Rachel, the cheerful, slightly clumsy college roommate who brought a spark of flirtation to the world of sitcom innocence. She smiled, she joked, she fit the mold perfectly. She was a picture of wholesome, mainstream success. But off-screen, something didn't sit right. Hollywood had placed her in a very specific, very safe box, and she was already looking for the key. For years after the show ended, she tried to fit into the system, auditioning for roles that always felt too small, too safe, too constrained. The more she tried to conform to traditional expectations, the more invisible she became. Until one day, she stopped conforming altogether. In her 40s, an age when most actresses are quietly nudged off-screen and into obscurity, Maitland Ward did something almost no one expected. She made a deliberate, audacious move and entered the world of adult cinema. But this wasn't a fall from grace in her eyes. It was a strategic reinvention. Ward approached the adult industry not as an act of desperation, but as a platform for expression, explicitly on her terms. The media didn't know what to make of her. A former Disney actress, now one of the biggest stars in the X-rated space. She didn't hide from the confusion or the judgment. She gave interviews, wrote essays, spoke powerfully about agency, control, and reclaiming narrative power. To some, she became a controversy. To others, a feminist symbol. But to Maitland herself, it was simple. For the first time, she was playing a role she actually chose. She crossed into the world of taboo, not as an exile, but as a creator. And in doing so, she revealed just how thin and how performative the line really is between mainstream and underground. In a town that often discards women after 30, Maitland Ward broke the script, rewrote the rules, and reminded everyone watching that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is refuse to fade out quietly. Jenna Jameson. Our final rebel didn't just cross over, she became the crossover. At a time when adult performers were still largely relegated to the margins, often hidden from mainstream view, Jenna Jameson walked straight into the spotlight and turned her name into an empire. She wasn't content with being a star. She wanted to be a phenomenon, and for a moment, she absolutely was. In the mid to late 1990s, Jenna Jameson's presence was ubiquitous. Magazine covers, late-night interviews, cameos in mainstream comedies, appearances on Howard Stern, MTV, talk shows. She was everywhere. She wasn't hiding from her past. She was monetizing it, owning it, packaging it into something glossy, provocative, and unnervingly marketable. And that's what made her so unique, so groundbreaking. Jenna wasn't just famous for her work in the X-rated world. She became famous precisely because she made that work into a brand. She was sharp, media-savvy, and years ahead of the influencer age. Her memoir, How to Make Love Like a Porn Star, wasn't just a bestseller. It was a bona fide cultural event, mixing trauma, confession, and spectacle in a way few dared to attempt. It shattered sales records and sparked endless conversations. She walked through every door the mainstream tried to keep shut. She appeared in the film Private Parts, voiced a character in Grand Theft Auto, Vice City, and got referenced in countless sitcoms. She wasn't an outsider looking in. She was already in the room, and everyone knew it. She blurred the lines between different forms of entertainment, creating a new kind of celebrity. But the climb to such unprecedented heights had its cost. As time passed, Jenna's story grew more complex. Business battles, personal struggles, reinventions, and retreats. The line between who she was and who she was expected to be often blurred. But even then, through all the ups and downs, she remained a cultural touchstone. The name that represented an entire era, one when adult fame flirted aggressively with the mainstream and nearly succeeded in seducing it completely. To some, she was controversy incarnate. To others, a symbol of self-made power. But to most, she was simply unforgettable because she refused to be quiet, refused to be shamed, and refused to be limited. Jenna Jameson didn't ask for a seat at the table. She built her own and put her name on it for the world to see. Tracy, Marilyn, Sasha, Ginger, Maitland, Jenna. These women, each in their own way, challenged the rigid definitions of Hollywood fame, morality, and artistic expression. They faced judgment, scandal, and the powerful forces that tried to silence them. But instead of fading away, they chose to fight back. Not with anger, but with reinvention, with audacity, and with an unwavering belief in their own agency. Their stories are a powerful reminder that true star power isn't just about conforming to an industry's expectations, but about owning your narrative, embracing your authentic self, and having the courage to rewrite the rules when no one else will. They didn't just break free from the shadows of scandal. They shone a light on what it truly means to be an independent, powerful force in a world that constantly tries to define you. They built their own fame, frame by defiant frame.